thanks very much, Dale, and thanks to everyone at United Potato Growers, and particularly George, for all the hard work that he does in putting this on. I see that picture there. It's a little bit out of date. I've got to get a bit more grey since then, so I should change my picture. So yeah, I'm from the UK, so greetings. I don't know, we might be the 53rd state after Canada and Greenland. I think it's we're all going to be on the list at some point. So I'm just going to have a look at the European market update, just to give you an idea of what's going on the other side of the pond. And here's just greetings for potatoes from around the world. So if the way you spell or say your potatoes is not up there, let me know and I can stick it on the slide. World Potato Market's weekly report on trade, production and pricing potatoes, and we go across the world to all continents, I think, apart from Antarctica, but that's a market to crack. So here we are. This is, as I say, I'm from the UK, so it's great to be here in Florida, and actually seeing more or less the same sort of weather as we've left behind in London. So that's great. So what areas am I looking at? Just looking at the European production, look at the weather and some of the processing and European trade, and really just having a quick look at China and India, because I think that's really important for you. And then I'm going to introduce you to a special potato treat, which I hope you'll enjoy. I'm sure you will. So let's just look at EU production, some more graphs, and again, you can look at these more in your leisure when they're posted up on the business website. And that's what we're looking at there. This is looking at the European Union, 27 countries of the European Union, were 28, UK not a member of the EU anymore, but also there in that orange line, or orange block, that is the EU4, which is Germany, France, Netherlands and Belgium. And they produced most of the consumption potatoes and processing potatoes, and most of the potatoes from that are exported in various forms, particularly as frozen fries. And they now are taking up about 2/3 of the production, even though they only account for just over half of the area. They've got higher yields in there, driven by their processing, focus on processing. So we see that there's not a record EU production. You go back to the sort of turn of the century, when there were a lot more potatoes grown. A lot of those grown in Eastern Europe for animal feed and starch production and things like that. So that has declined over the years, but there's been a shift to more consumption potatoes and a shift westwards to those sort of 4 countries. This is the area, and you can see that again. So that blue line is the total production, total area, and the blue columns, that's the total production area, and the orange is total area in the EU4, and the line there is the percentage of the EU4. So again, just stressing that the production is sort of concentrating in those four countries. So there's been a 55% reduction in the area since the turn of the century. Amazing that we're a quarter of the way through the century. It's quite sobering, really, isn't it? So look at yields, and the EU yields have been going up over the years, but the EU4 yields really haven't changed much at all in the last decade or so. So that is an area of concern there for production within Europe, that really yields are not increasing, and in those sort of concentrated areas, in those concentrated countries, but they do continue to increase in the rest of the EU as production consolidates. This is production for those 4 countries. This is just consumption potatoes. So this is those potatoes that are either eaten on the table as cooked potatoes or as processed potatoes. And this is a group of 4 organisations NEPG, and they look at those 4 countries. So they have had a record production this year, just beating the 2017 production. So that 2024 just beat 2017. So there are quite a lot more potatoes around in Europe this year. The harvest was better than it was in 2023. There was a wet spring, but the fall was better. And the potatoes were able to come out of the ground better. So that is for them that's better news. Just looking quickly at Poland and UK, these are the 2 other sort of main producers of potatoes in sort of Western Europe, the old EU, if you like. If you go beyond to Ukraine and Russia, producing around about 20 million tons, but most of that production's within those countries. So Polish production recovered this year after its smallest crop ever in 2023. So that blue line there, that's recovered. UK production, we're sort of estimating, I think it's probably going to be the smallest crop ever in the UK but we still eat plenty of potatoes, but we're eating more and more potatoes coming in from other parts of the world, particularly from Belgium and Netherlands, although we do eat some Canadian French fries. There's not many US French fries coming yet, but maybe there might be those sort of opportunities there, particularly if there are trade deals between the US and the UK. As I say, yeah, so recovery in Poland and UK is probably the smallest crop ever. Weather's one of the biggest issues I know here, and sort of seeing some of the horrific pictures of the fires in California, obviously an important issue here as well. But Europe, and I'm just showing a picture there of Spain, this was back in October, the floods in there, and that was in a very much, not so much a potato area, but very much in a sort of vegetable area. So Spain's had some really big droughts and heat waves in the last few years. Temperatures getting well over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, well over 40 degrees centigrade, pushing almost getting up to 45 degrees centigrade, and then there were massive floods in October. So the weather does seem to be changing, and it does, for potato growers, that's an important one because they don't know when the weather is going to change. So they don't know when they're planting the potatoes, whether it's going to be wet then, whether it's going to be wet in the summer. Is it going to be hot in the summer? Is it going to be wet then in the harvesting period? So makes it much more uncertain to grow potatoes. And I think for a lot of farmers, that's one of the reasons that they sort of question whether they are growing potatoes, because there are other crops that are perhaps more predictable in the way that they're, and not so expensive to lose if you lost a crop. So you're talking in well over $10,000 a hectare to produce potatoes, so that's sort of $4,000 an acre to grow potatoes in Europe now. So it's a risky crop to grow. Always has been, but that risk is increasing. So just looking in the last few years, well, there's never a normal year in potatoes, but there've been particularly abnormal years in the last few years. So 2018 drought, and then there was a wet fall in 2019. COVID and Brexit in 20 and 2021, drought and invasion of Ukraine in 2022, wet spring and fall in 23, wet spring 24, floods in Spain and Eastern Europe. 2025, what's on the horizon there? Well, I think, tariffs, that's going to be a big issue there for a lot of people in Europe as well. Weather events, can we predict those? We don't know but certainly is sort of change does seem to afoot. Political uncertainty, change of government in the UK. It's fair to say that the farmers are not very happy with the change of government in the UK, with changes on inheritance tax in particular, have not gone down well. and so there's great sort of uncertainty. You're probably having, well, you're having change in the French government. You had change in the German government coming up in the next few weeks as well. So there's real sort of political uncertainty there. But as I say, with tariffs, if there are tariffs, there's around about 8% tariffs on imported frozen fries into America now from Europe. So that could increase that if there's a sort of tit-for-tat tariff war. And you could actually see that French fries might be something that comes under scrutiny. Yeah, as I say, when is there a normal year? But it's getting more and more abnormal. Just sort of prices. So these are these are Belgian prices. So you're looking at that blue price there. This is the free buy. There's still quite a big market in free buy processing potatoes in Europe, around about 30% of the market. That orange columns, that's the contract price. But you saw prices going up. So this was 600 euros a ton. So that's well over $600 a ton. Sorry, I can't do the dollars into hundredweight. That sort of blows my mind. But there we go. So we are seeing a lift up in prices, and these prices have gone up in the last few years. And really, there is now pressure not to take those prices down. So contract prices haven't come down for 25, 26 because of pressure and farmers saying, well, if you can't give us a price, we're not going to grow it. Just Belgian processing output. This is an increase in growth in processing in Belgium. That's been dramatic since the turn of the century, but it does seem to have levelled off now in the last year or two. That we're seeing that they're reaching peak potato. They can't grow that many more potatoes in Belgium because of the pressure on land. And so that's what's happening there. And same in the Netherlands, we really have reached peak potato now. That blue line there, that's the latest processing figures there. So that's sort of topped off a bit. It's recovered a bit since COVID, but it hasn't gone back to sort of pre-COVID levels. And the Dutch being the second largest processors in Europe. So that's, again, little room for expansion there. But we are seeing expansion in France. So this is what is a French fry? This is, I know I was saying this in Potatoes USA yesterday, what is a French fry? So you're having France producing more French fries. The Belgians claim that French fries are actually Belgian fries, and it was a Belgian thing that was invented. But France is increasing its output of French fries, and quite dramatically as well. And we're seeing investment, significant investment in French fry production. Also said at Potatoes USA, why do everyone with a potato processes, why is yellow, orange and red? Why are they in all the logos? So there's 4 companies here that are significantly investing in Belgium. The Agristo is one of those, and Clarabo's actually bought a plant or opened a plant in France, and that's operating now. Agristo, who are now looking at opening up in the States as well. They're planning their new plant that's coming on stream in the next year or two. McCain are investing in another Belgian company called EcoFrost, all investing in France. So you're having French fries that are being grown in France, either processed in Belgium or processed by a Belgian company in France and then being eaten by people in France. So it's all over the place. Looking at exports, EU fry exports, these are 12-month periods, and this is on million tons. This is the 5 countries, so that's Belgium, Netherlands, France, Germany and Poland. And you're seeing really a sort of peak, an increase, good recovery after COVID, but a peaking of that exports now. So that's I suppose good news for you that actually you are perhaps a little bit less pressure from European exporters. So that's come down a little bit, but still, significantly more than it was just a decade ago. These are the figures of EU exports of French fries outside Europe. So the previous figures was just the main exporters, and that included fries exports within the EU. So this is the crucial one for you. But again, you're sort of seeing a peak, a recovery, a very strong recovery after COVID, and then a peak to much, or it has been much higher than pre-COVID levels, but you've seen a peak and a slight decline in exports there. And I think that's sort of crucial for you. Looking at frozen fries exports to the US in tons, and again, they peaked in 22-23, so in 23-24, they have come down a little bit, but they're still very much elevated from where they were a decade ago. So that there is less pressure, there is fewer fries coming to you in the US, but that might change again if there are tariffs, and EU processors will be concerned about that, because the US is a good market. After the UK and after Saudi Arabia, the US is the largest non-EU market for EU processors. So it's significant to them and what happens there. Just looking at China and India, these are new players really on the block. You go back only 5, 6, 7 years, and they were marginal exporters. China was a much larger importer, had a big fry trade deficit, but that's completely swapped around now. So India, never really an importer of frozen fries or potatoes, but you've seen a big increase there. So 170,000 tons in the latest figures. And then China, you've seen that growth as well, significant growth. And that's taking, so in November we had record exports of Chinese fries, and it seems every month now that they're breaking new export records. And we're nearly 200,000 tons of Chinese fry exports, and I wouldn't be surprised if not this time next year. In 2 years' time, we'll be over 300,000 tons of exports there, and India growing steadily as well. So new players on the block, and they do sell the price of their fries are cheaper than European and certainly cheaper than North American as well. So as Dale said, I'm a trustee and vice chairman of something called Linking Environment and Farming, very much on the sort of sustainability side of things. And if you'd like to discuss that with me, that is something on integrated farm management, and now being used more widely around the world. Our biggest supermarket chain, Tesco's, now insists on their fresh produce being leaf marked, so meeting this sort of standard. So it's basically farming better with less. So still farming conventionally, using and valuing inputs such as artificial fertilizers and crop protection products, but using them as effectively as possible as a very important part of the armory. Normally at this point of the presentation, I'll give you a sort of talking about the wonders of the potatoes. Always a great fan of the potato in terms of what it can do in all the weird and wonderful ways, different foods, proteins and things like that. But I'm actually going to hand over to a fellow Brit now who's going to describe something very exciting in the potato space. So many thanks for your attention. I'm going to hand over to David Pryor-Hope, who will explain more. Thank you.
Sorry, just trying to figure out how to change this. Oh, awesome. Hello everyone, thank you Cedric so much for the introduction. I'm really excited to be here today and talk to you guys a little bit about my startup, Vibe. Specifically, we're very keen to learn a little bit more about the North American potato industry and also meet any potential investors to be a part of our seed round kicking off very soon. In a nutshell, we're the first to turn potato stems into textile fibers for the clothing industry. The idea is to provide both the agricultural and the clothing industry a method of meeting their sustainability targets whilst also making the harvest a little bit more profitable. Of course, everyone here is well aware that sustainability is constantly on the agricultural agenda. However, this is also a major topic of discussion in the clothing industry, with fashion being the second most polluting in the world after oil and gas. With demand for clothing constantly on the rise and legislation gradually phasing out conventional materials, we're starting to see brands avidly seeking sustainable alternatives. In fact, it is projected that by 2030, there'll be demand for eco-materials will exceed supply by 133 million tons. In fact, we've actually seen this demand firsthand, with outdoor clothing brand Patagonia investing in our pre-seed round. Currently, there is no fiber on the market that can meet the quality of conventional materials without falling short in either sustainability, affordability, or scalability. We believe the solution lies with agricultural co-products. With over 1 billion tons available everywhere around the world, they're relatively inexpensive, abundant, and more importantly, they support the produce of other essential goods. Take, for example, potato stem, our first feedstock. As, of course, everyone here will know, potato is the third most important food crop in the world. Potato stems are poisonous, and they're often described as a nuisance by potato growers, especially in the face of growing dicot bans. We calculated there's around 150 million tons of potato stem that's currently discarded every single year. From our calculations, this would make it the world's largest untapped agricultural co-product. With our patent-pending technology, we can transform this opportunity into textile fibers at the same quality and cost as conventional materials, whilst using just a fraction of the water and energy inputs. By supplying a feedstock for a sustainable material, potato buyers in Europe have told us that they think that they could use our model to potentially meet some of their sustainability targets, and also, unlike other sustainable agricultural solutions, could actually help them become a little bit more profitable in their harvest. So I'm sure at this point you're probably wondering how we're planning to get our hands on this feedstock without doing a lot of this. Well, the last thing we want is to cause a disruption to the harvest operations, or even worse, damage the more valuable below-ground product. So that's why we've partnered up with Grimmett, parent company of Sputnik, to develop the world's first potato stem harvester. Whilst the current machine is just a first prototype, we've been able to prove the concept by trialing the machine on over 8 different UK farms across a range of growing conditions. Not only is this machine already 600 times faster than a manual harvest, but also all the growers have reported no tuber damage and no land damage. As you may expect, there are variations between different fields in terms of their fiber quality. To better understand this, with help from the UK's National Institute of Agricultural Botany, we are constantly sampling from both fields specifically grown for us and also just as many commercial fields as possible. So you can see lots of places we've been to. So far we have learned that all fields we've trialed appear to give fibers that are suitable for the clothing industry. It just happens that some fields may give fiber better suited for some applications compared to others. I'm sure at this point you're probably wondering, when can you buy clothes made from your crops? Well, in the last 2 years since founding this company, we have raised over $2.8 million in funding. We've grown the team to over 14. We've validated our product is compatible with existing clothing manufacturing processes. And we've scaled the technology to benchtop production. We're aiming to be selling to sustainable innovation brands in 2026. In fact, one such brand is actually going to be starting a collaboration with us very, very soon. Whilst this market space is a really exciting opportunity, we want to have the biggest impact possible. And that's why we know we need to work with the major producers, such as the high street brands, in the long term. With these milestones set, we're kicking off our $3 million seed investment round, which will be starting in next month, to build a pilot production facility. This will enable us to start meeting small orders and generating a little bit of revenue. If you would be potentially interested in talking about this, then please do reach out or contact me later. We're also eager to learn a little bit more about the North American potato industry and potentially connect with any innovators. With all that, thank you so much for listening to me today. You can keep up to date by following our socials or looking at our website. You can also read a little bit more about us on any of these articles. Thank you.